Welcome to Sounds Like Portraits. I'm Philippe Ungar. This is a podcast with creative humans. In this episode, I'm talking with Pascaline Lepeltier, Master Sommelier and Managing Partner at Racine in New York. Last year, Pascaline has achieved an historic double triumph. First, winning the prestigious Meilleur Ouvrier de France title in the sommelier category, and then the crown of Best Sommelier of France. She was the first woman ever to win these two competitions. She is supporting sustainable, non-industrial farming practices, not only because they are better for human health and nature, but because they also make better wines. As a sommelier, she has only 2 minutes to understand what her customers want and what will make them happy. So, are there guidelines to pair wine with food? It's time to listen to her. But before, she told me what she tried to do all her life.
All my life, I always try to be better tomorrow than yesterday. I think it's very easy to find a certain comfort in your life and to want to remain in a state of comfort. I've been a very lucky person, so I think I need to give back, and every day it's about that. It's trying to give back, so try to be better.
We often say that we are what we eat. Are we what we drink for you?
We are homo imbibens, like what we are today as a species, as a human species, and homo sapiens is because we have been able to drink some alcohol in a way or another. There is a lot of studies showing that without our ability to absorb alcohol, we wouldn't be the species we are today. Alcohol really saved us from a lot of disease and all this kind of thing, and we have been an animal that has been able to metabolize alcohol, like it's a part of our DNA, and that's been described by anthropologists. So it's not something new, it's just now is a very hygienist movement where people are saying, alcohol is going to kill you. Without alcohol, we wouldn't be where we are today. It's like for everything, there is perspective to be brought. Yeah, Homo sapiens is an Homo imbibens.
What wine impacted you the most until that day?
I don't think there is one wine. I think there is a certain idea of wine. I've been lucky to be in this business for almost 17 years now, and I've been more and more moved and touched by how wine has this ability to transcend place, time, nature, culture, and certain wine are able to really make us feel that, with or without knowledge.
How do you explain this ability of a wine to transport you back in the days?
I don't think anybody had been able to explain why, otherwise it will be reproduced. That's just absolutely fascinating. It can be done with wine, or it can be done sometimes with food. It's just wine has this incredible ability to be able to be connected to that place through the alchemy of alcoholic fermentation. Like, how is it possible that a grape juice, through this very intense transformation, can have a chemical composition that allows individuals like us to know where that wine is from when we have been able to taste it over and over again. That's insane. You don't really do that with any other ingredients. Maybe with tea, maybe with certain very specific type of fruits, maybe with some meat. This experience just first is a very physical and emotional experience where you don't need the concept to feel you understand something or you are connected back.
So behind that, there's a kind of artistic skill.
You can compare the aesthetic feeling of drinking wine or eating something very specific to have the emotional aesthetic feel you may have with a painting or whatever piece of art, because you are using not the concept but your aesthetic judgment. For wine, no, it's all about craft. It's not art, it's craft. It's not creating something from out of the blue that doesn't exist on Earth. It's like conducting, by repetition and observation, the transformation of something into something else. I believe winemakers are craft people, and on my side, I'm just all about the repetition of the same gesture over and over again. So it's more like closer to the craft or artisanal. It's no pretension. It's no art at all. No.
Tell me about your story. Tell me, how did you come to the wine industry?
So I came quite late after having the need to take some time away from the study I was doing, which was a philosophy study. So I was very lucky to be good at school, and kind of a natural path took me to do some pretty heavy, intense postgraduate type of study, and I chose philosophy.
What kind of philosophy were you attracted by?
I studied very early on like Greek philosophy because I learned ancient Greek since I was like a kid. So I studied a lot of Plato, of course, like a lot of us, but also the pre-Socratics. That was very, very interesting for me. And then when I decided to get specialized in philosophy, I really discovered Bergson, which is a French philosopher from the early 20th century, and I did most of my research on Bergson, and I studied language in that part. But I was also very attracted to all the metaphysical questions. I'm not very a logic person, less a moral person, but the metaphysics was really kind of where I wanted to continue to put my reflection. And so I was doing my master, finished my master of Bergson, and I was just starting to prepare the diploma to teach. And I was young, I was 21, and you can be really good at school and really have an ease with intellectual concepts, but it's a whole different story when it's your turn to teach. And I really blocked out, and I was like, there is no way. I'm absolutely not ready to be able to teach about love or work or whatever. So I took a year off, and I started to just work in a bunch of different places, and work in restaurant, and I liked it. And inside the restaurant, wine kind of started to be important. My philosophy teacher also loved wine, so he kind of pulled me a couple of good classes, and I was like, wow. That was not difficult for me to get into wine, because it was in fact a very lazy decision, because it was just easy. You know, what happened is the first time I really had a real glass of wine. I'm not talking about, entry, like stuff that you drink when you're bad, crappy stuff. No, my real glass of wine. It just talked to me. It was just evident. And I was in search of something evident. I always compare that to like a pianist, like when you are a musician, I would have loved to be a musician, but I have pleasure, but I don't play well. But you have people that just go to the piano and they just start to play. It's easy. And wine was just like that. I just took my glass and it felt easy. It was something that was not hard. I could spend hours with.
Effortless.
Yes, and like effortless in a way. Like I knew I had to taste a lot and to read a lot and to visit a lot, but everything was easy to absorb. Everything makes sense. Everything made sense.
So you're a sommelier, you're a master sommelier right now. Tell me, in a restaurant, what is a wine waiter? What is a sommelier?
The classic definition is just somebody that is part of a team of a restaurant in front of the house, and is going to take care of the beverage and make sure that the food prepared by the team and the chef can be matched or harmonized with beverages, and the expertise of the person is to make sure also financially it's well done for the restaurant. So you are a wine captain, basically, or beverage captain. The more I work, the more I realize that my job is way less about pure wine knowledge, it's about psychology. Like most of the work that I'm doing is in fact to help and read people, to know and understand quickly what they want to do and what they want to experience. And sometimes they don't really care about wine at all. They just want to have a good time. But they don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to express it. It's very interesting, especially now, like since a couple of years, since I got all the title and all that, like people are so scared to talk to me. And it's like, we are just going to do something very simple here. You're just going to sit down, you're going to have a great time, you're going to eat and you're going to drink, and just talk to me normally. And you realize that a lot of my guests have no idea how to express anything that is about their taste. They don't know, they don't have the vocabulary, they don't know how to talk about it. For them, it's a foreign language. And I think that it's very sad that we totally forgot how powerful we are with our palate. So most of my job is really psychology. I have 2 minutes to read the table, make sure that I understand what they want, and make them happy. And using a specific vocabulary. So it's really about word and language, in fact.
What is the first thing you're looking at when you're discovering your clients, in a restaurant?
Um, First, I already try always to do eye contact. I really like to look at people in the eye, smile, and you can really easily see in a couple of seconds what the table is gonna be about. If it's a date, if it's a moment with like a professional business, it's a family reunion, if it's a very awkward kind of moment between two or three people. You need to just pay attention to all the small details of the body language, and then you need to make everybody feel at ease in 2 seconds. So either it's a joke, either it's being very serious, either it's being very formal. You need to have the right attitude. So in 30 seconds you can unlock the door and then you go.
You're a woman. Does it help?
I, I don't really believe it's in kind of gender thing. No, I don't think so. I think I'm somebody that really want to care for people.
For the customer, is it better to know something about wine to enjoy it?
Yes and no. It depends what. I think it's more a question of moment. There are some moments that you don't want to know anything about anything. You just want to be in an atmosphere where you're going to be happy. It's like something for music. There is a certain moment I just want to have something in the back of my mind, and I'm just listening to that when I'm working. But it just make me feel so good. And other moment, I really want to understand what's happening. And in that case, yes, it's better for you to have a little bit of knowledge, but otherwise, I don't think so. It's why I say we need to be at the same time very smart and very stupid today. It's a key. So we need to adapt to every moment of life. We need to respect the reason why people decide to come in your restaurant.
About the pairing wine and food, do you have guidelines to pair wine and food?
Yeah, of course I have guidelines. So the way I taste wine is in structure. It's also the way I taste the food. What I mean by structure is the way that the wine is built. In a way, is the most reliable and ecumenic way of understanding that wine. So if I'm tasting the wine at every different time of its life. There is certain wine, I know them from the moment I know the grapes, I know when it's been pressed, I know a month after fermentation, I know 6 months after in aging, and I know it in bottle. So I have this ability to be able to taste a wine at multiple stages of its life. What you realize is at the end, when the wine is done and finished, it's going to have the same structure for most of its life. Where I'm talking about acid, alcohol, tannin, sugar and gas. That's going to be the skeleton of the wine. So if it's a high acid wine with low alcohol in a bottle, there is no chance that this one is going to become a high alcohol, low acid wine 20 years down the road. Okay, so that's going to be what defines a wine. It's also the way that people are talking about wine. We are not talking about wine in terms of I want a strawberry wine with like rose petal. They want light wine, a fresh wine, a full-bodied wine, a sweet wine. They are talking about structure. And when you think about how a dish is built, it's built the same way. You are talking about structural elements, you are talking about fat, you are talking about salt, you are talking about acid, you are talking about different type of bitter agents. And so when I'm doing the pairing, I'm always thinking about that universal structural points between the wine, the food, and the way people talk about it. And it's also very important because this is a common language for everybody. If I taste a wine and it's sweet, like 99% of you're going to be able to also taste the wine sweet. If I tell that the wine tastes like tamarind, if you never had tamarind in your life, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But that universal language is here as a species. We have this ability to feel that. So it's just make everything on the same page. And so I'm always building my pairing on the structural element. And I'm going to try to either match them or to contrast them. That depends how much I want to enhance it as a wine of the dish. It's almost impossible to enhance both at the same time. These kind of magical pairing are very, very rare. You always try either to put the wine under the limelight or you want to try to put the food under the limelight. You always kind of try to have to take a part. It's so rare to be able to do both at the same time. And so I build that on that. Giving you an example, my chef is putting a crudo on the menu right now. I have a fluke crudo. It's been served with cucumbers that have been pickled in white soy vinegar and fresh cucumber. And there is some sunflower seed oil on it. Okay, that's my dish. Salty, slightly fatty, fat coming from the fish, fat coming from the oil. It's not the same type of oil, but it's not overpowering in a dish. I have pickle, so I have vinegar, I have acetic acid. I don't have any sweetness. I have a tiny bit of bitterness coming from the skin of the cucumber. Bum, bum, bum. Okay, so it's a dish that definitely going to define itself on acid and salt. I can't really put a red wine with that, with tannin. Acid, salt, and tannins, they don't work together well. They're going to make the wine taste very, very bitter. So when I think about that dish, I'm like, okay, I'm probably going to match the texture. I'm going to go with high acid wine with a saltiness and a certain maybe level of hint of bitterness. I think that's going to be my nice pairing. And then I'm going to play with my aromatics. This is when I'm going to start to pay attention to the aromatics, because in the category of high acid briny wine, I can go with a non-aromatic wine like Muscadet. I can go with a slightly aromatic wine with some dry Riesling from the southern part of Germany. I can go to way more aromatic like some Albarino or some other type of grapes that have very expressive intensity. And so if there is a sunflower seed oil and cucumber, I'm not very aromatic. It's kind of subtle. So I'm probably going to go more on a subtlety because I don't want the dish to suddenly be in contrast with this aromatic. So I'm probably going to go with a Muscadet. But if tomorrow chef change the oil and put a coriander oil and decide to also add some tiny bit of kefir lime in the preparation or bay leaf, that's a whole different story. So I will probably going to go bump it up to my dry Riesling because the aromatics will require something. So this is how I work. Always structural first, and then I have way more choice in my aromas than I have in my structure. And I usually adapt also my structure, my aromatics to the choice of my guests. So this is where you need to know if the guests want something more fruit forward and easy and primary, or if they don't mind something that has a bit more evolution. That's where you push the guest knowledge.
I'm so impressed. Last year, you were the first female best sommelier in France and best craftsman in the sommelier category. What made the difference between the competitors for you?
I don't know. I didn't see the score of the grid. I really don't know. For the MOF, for the Meilleur Ouvrier de France, I was told that my service was great. So I really think it's a maturity that you are gaining, where you are mastering in a very humble way. I think I am at a stage now that I have so much to learn, but I have the feeling that what I know, I really made it part of myself. It's really in me. So I don't have to think anymore. It's the way I am. I got it after all these years by thinking that every single day I need to be at the top of my skills, and I need to really over and over again repeat the gesture, try again, that craft I was talking about. And I think I could get it last year just because I've been living and thinking like that for the last 10 years. And the same thing for the other competition. I tried 3 times before and I didn't pass. I didn't pass because also I think it was more a way for me to be confident in myself. And I didn't go for the right reason. And this time I just went because I thought I wanted to see where I was in my path and what I was still need to go to the next step. It was a very different approach. It was just not superficial knowledge and monkey skills, and it was, okay, why is it so important to know that? Why is it so important to master pouring or whatever, and how can it be meaningful for me, for my team, for my guests, for the wine in general? So that was the big difference.
About the best sommelier in France, what were the most challenging tests for you in this competition?
That's a good question. So the most challenging is always probably all the service and tasting, because you never know what you're going to have, and it's very, very quick. You have to react in a very, very short amount of time to a product. So you need to be super sharp. Like you have 5 minutes to taste a wine or 5 minutes to describe a dish, know what the dish is about. And so you need to be able to have this intense concentration and then put all the knowledge back in the front of your head. And of course, being on the stage is always very tricky because we are on the stage every day here, but we are not facing 800 people with microphone and all that. So you need to learn that. And be succinct and go to the, when you have no time, you really learn to be to the point. And that I had to work a lot on that. To the point, very clear and very calm. So I watched the final like not a long time ago, and I was like so pissed off at myself because I looked so stressed and nervous, and it was not clear. And I was like, man, I have so much still work to do. To have that feeling of confidence and calm. Yeah.
I'm always impressed about the blind tasting. Can you tell me how you build your comments when you do a blind tasting?
So that's a tricky question, because when you blind taste, you also need to know who you are blind tasting for. So the way you are going to blind taste, especially for a competition, you have kind of a way you have to go through to be able to score some points. You know, at the end of competition, you need to score points. So it's a very different story than when I'm blind tasting for myself or with my team, where we try to understand wines, and when I need to bam. So it's a bit like an MS grade, like you need to know you have to eat boxes and check boxes. So the way it's built has to be really clear and consistent. You have kind of universal way of describing the wine. You have to talk about the side, you have to talk about the nose.
Can we take an example? Your last blind tasting, for example.
Yes, so I did a blind tasting 2 days ago, in fact, with my team. So I was talking about was a white wine. So you are like, oh, it's clear white, straw color, try to get into the intensity, trying to assess the age of the wine, or eventually some oxidation for the color. So in that case, the wine was straw, tiny bit of hint of silver on a rim. So you knew that the wine was probably on its youth, with also a pretty thin, watery meniscus, which tends to tell you that the wine has low alcohol. Some tears, fast, also confirming that the wine had some low alcohol content or no sugar, so little water retention on the glass itself. Then you go on the nose, and the nose was very primary, very reductive, with a slight oxidation at the same time. So right away you're like, okay, this type of nose is a very complex nose, showing very different things, showing at the same time youth, but also evolution. So you are, okay, that probably linked to some winemaking techniques. And then you are smelling aromas. You try to describe, once again for the audience or the judges, the fruit aromatics. So you go by family and then by individual example. So let's say you don't say just citrus, it tends to be lemon, pith, or kumquat, coffee, or whatever. And so you try to describe these aromatics, and then you try to describe the non-aromatics world, so the vegetal, the herbal, the spice, the fermentary. What I always try to do myself is to link that to the varietal itself, to the climate, to the winemaking. So I just don't say it smells like banana and pineapple. It just doesn't make anything. Doesn't mean. But if I say, okay, that wine, to take the example of this very, very specific wine, lemon pith, salt reduction, I was like, okay, that is a non-aromatic grape variety that has been made in a way to preserve this very specific vinification characteristic. And I really try to make it clear when I describe the wine. And then you do a little conclusion on your nose, and then you go to the palate, and same thing. Usually you describe the structure. Is it a high acid wine? Is it bone dry wine? And same thing, I try to be more precise, which is, okay, it's a high acid, but acid is a very complex part. There's different type of acid, so the wine seems to go through malolactic fermentation, but there is still a lot of acid behind, so I think there's a very high acid grape per se. There's a lot of tartaric. And if it's a very technical judge in front of me, I can go at that level. Like I said, that's tartaric, high tartaric grapes. Malolactic is done, reductive aromatics and environment, a lot of this contact, a lot of autolysis, yet a little bit of oxidation. So probably in barrel that been seen some previous wine, and you go on, and then you aromatically, soft aromatic, no phylls, no terpenes, no pyrazine, and very middle on the ground aromatic grape variety. I think that grape can be a Savagnin because of that. So you really need to adapt, and then you need, what I ask always my team when we do blind tasting is always, okay, how do you serve the wine? What do you like? It's great to blind taste, but that's a wine that you need to serve in which shape of glassware, what temperature are you keeping this wine? How would you prepare it if we had to serve it tonight in service? How would you prepare it? Which dishes? And I tell them to always give me a protein-based dish, a vegetable-based dish, a cheese. Like, okay, great. And then in 5 years, which dishes will you pair with this wine? How is this wine evolved? Will you buy this wine, and how much will you buy it for? So we are always trying to connect with. So it's a cool exercise.
How do you calibrate your palate to taste a wine?
How do I calibrate? But I taste so many wines. I have certain referential. I know some wines so by heart. I know their analysis. I have so many winemaker friends that they really help me. So I really know. Okay, if I want to.
It's like a library in your mind.
Oh yeah, it's like a library. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's like you go through the data. No, but I do less. But I taste wine all the time now, so it's a little bit less of a practice or like kind of a scale at the piano. But I've been trying to do some check where I can differentiate malic versus citric versus tartaric acid, trying to really pay attention. That's tannin from stem inclusion, tannin from the oak, tannin from this type of oak. So I still do some exercise like that, just to know exactly where they are in my mouth. Trying to do some blind taste. But really, the problem with the wine in general is we have very little information. So it's very, 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 very complicated for us, and it's also why I think a big part of my job is more about the demystification of the wine as a beverage and the lack of transparency in our business, which is a massive problem. And so even for me to exactly know how wine is made, it's almost impossible unless I have a direct contact with the producer. And even though if that person doesn't want to play the game, that person can lie to me. It's impossible today to really know what there is in a bottle of wine. You can do analysis, you can have an idea, but if somebody add a little bit of acid, or if somebody add some sugar, or somebody add a bunch of other stuff, you may not know it. So I think a lot of blind tasting is also absolutely wrong, because we taste something and we don't know what is really into that bottle unless we have a very, very specific contact with the winemaker. And that's why we need to be more demanding as buyer. Otherwise, you just do that in the dark. It's just false.
About the quality of wine, are organic wines better than non-organic ones?
So organic, biodynamic, natural wine are a very big subject for me. I work in the food industry. Okay, I'm part of the food industry and the food chain. I'm part of, indirectly, I sell agricultural product. Where I am right now and what I see my job being about, it's about supporting a certain way of farming. When you're exposed, when you're every day, you are with chef, you are with ingredients, you are dealing with feeding people, you are getting very sensitive about what you are giving to your guests. And you realize that unfortunately a lot of what we are giving to our guests in general is far from being safe for our guests at different level. As an individual level, because we are working and we are surrounded by a lot of processed food and we don't really know what there is in our food, and even less in our wine because there is no mention of labeling. We think we are safe because some authority decided we are safe, but we don't really know how different molecules can interject between each other. So we don't really know where our food is from, how is it really, really transformed, and how is it farmed. And the fact that since 50 years we have been living under the petrochemical type of farming is a really big thing we need to consider and to analyze and to question, because we don't know what we have been doing. So what I've been doing, and I've been very lucky in the wine side, is I've been in contact with winemakers since I started in that field. I've been really told by my mentors that the most important is to go and see yourself and to be a long-term relationship where you really understand and try to understand what does that mean to really farm grapes, and what does that mean to be farming monoculture, which is grapes in a monoculture, and what does that imply at every level. Farming, it become an industrial farming, and there is really, really big issues with that. And there is alternatives are possible. And that alternatives are possible are not the loudest, they are not the one with the lobbies, they are not with the big brands. And they are usually brought by individuals that realize also there was some limit to the system and we had to do something else. So yes, the wine I want to support, the wine I'm promoting, the one I'm selling, the one I'm making money on, the one that's helping me to do my business, are through a chain that is linking, for me, real farmers that are trying to offer an alternative and a sustainable alternative for the future at a price that is a price, but the money goes to the real deal, to creating jobs and to make sure that the soil is taken care of. And at the end, this one are also tasting better. So in terms of pure health and in terms of sociological and ecological perspective, this one are better, but also in terms of organoleptics quality, in terms of complexity, in terms of what this one can bring, they are just more complex, more challenging to serve because they are changing and evolving all the time, but they give so much more to the person that is drinking them. This is why for me it's better, because you are just rediscovering the incredible diversity of taste that you forgot. It may be not 100% score points, but 100 points doesn't mean anything. It just means today, it doesn't mean anything for me in terms of pure aesthetical quality. It just means something for a wine to be sold.
Could you make the difference between organic wines and non-organic wines in a blind tasting?
Yes and no. The problem with organic wine is today, because it's such a marketing opportunity, a lot of big brands now are getting into the organic wine, so that's bullshit. And the problem is a lot of organic product also today everywhere, they don't really taste like anything because they've been farmed industrially. But if you are talking about non-industrial organic product, yes, you can taste the difference. You can taste the difference because you are just trying to follow the path of growth of a plant in its normal environment. So you are trying to work with natural cycle and natural season and non-salt fertilizer, and to really try to have the vegetable to dig as much as possible in the ground to be able to extract what is needed for his normal growth. And so the product you are getting from that is going to have his own path and his own complexity, where it's not going to be a fake complexity. A lot of products we're eating, even organic today, are just hydroponic overfed product just with water and the natural like salt. It just don't taste like anything. But when you go following the natural path and cycle, the difference can be tasted by anybody. It's so easy. Everybody can taste the difference.
I come to natural wine, which I really love. Is it just a trend for you?
No, it's not a trend. It's here. What's a trend is fake and industrial natural wine. But no, this desire to go back to wine with minimal intervention and low additives, it's here for the long run. No. It's part of the future. Calling them natural wine, I think we need to rethink the concept, like organic or biodynamic. I think it's a lot of people with natural wine are just focusing on the non-sulfur. That doesn't make any sense. If you want to put a tiny bit of sulfur to preserve your wine, let's be it. A lot of the talk on this wine are done by people that don't make wine, and I think the debate should go back to the winemakers themselves. What matters is, once again, is real farming and real cycle of consumption, production and consumption. Natural wine kind of was a big kick to help that to become a reality on a global scale for different markets. Thanks to the natural wine, suddenly all over the world, with this kind of extraordinary punk rock almost energy, captured the attention to new drinkers, millennials, estate, people that really like food and wine, and that's fantastic. Now we need to go to the phase of real transformation, which is how can we really allow this wine to exist. So what we are rediscovering now is that the invisible has probably been way more affected by all this insane behavior in the agriculture, the chemical impact, and the yeast and bacterial population is getting weaker and weaker. So how do we do? How do these guys are doing? They have to put a bit of sulfur, maybe they have to put some yeast. So they can't call themselves natural anymore, but they are not natural just because we are just realizing that we probably destroy way more than what is visible. So is there a future for natural wine right now? Maybe not, just because we need first to manage to regenerate the invisible. So that's a big question. That's a real debate for natural wine today. So it's a term that I don't really care because people are just thinking about sulfur. That doesn't make any sense. That's a false problem, a false attention that allows people to continue to do a bunch of stuff. What will allow tomorrow to really make sure that nature can do it by itself.
I'm gonna leave the space. I'm gonna leave the restaurant. Please hold the microphone and add whatever you want to the interview.
If you can change something, if you can improve something, if you can do something better, you must do it. And it's not that hard, and it makes you really feel better too.
Thank you, Pascaline, for sharing your story. It was Sounds Like Portraits, a podcast by Philippe Ongor. Music Charmeuse de Serpent, composed and conducted by Olivier Glisson. See you soon for the next episode.